Welcome back into the Dead Arm Sports Podcast, coming at you. S. Viernes, happy Friday. Jell and Josh in the house here. Have a fun episode, a few NFL tidbits to run through, a couple takes, and then we've got our NFL tiers ranking. So we're going to tell you whether your franchise is in rebuilding mode, they need to embrace that they need to rebuild, they need to go hard to win now, sacrifice the future, or they're just a major piece away, whether that's via the trade market or the draft. But before we get into that question of the day today, since it is Friday, Gel, I looked it up. It is National Cocktail Day. So, yeah. So, just so we're clarifying here, this is alcoholic mixed drinks, Gel. Not, don't want any discrepancies like we had last week with the Pie Day reference. So,
okay. In my defense, a ton of pizza places came out with like specials for that day.
Okay.
Like Blaze Pizza, shout out, not a hashtag, not a sponsor. I think they're pretty good. I only usually get them like, I don't know, once a year maybe. But oh, hi puppy. There's my dog. For you YouTube viewers, find us on YouTube, just search Dead Arm Sports. They were doing pizzas for $3.14.
Nice.
On 314. So,
that's solid.
I was just in the mind of, hey, pizza.
Just
alcoholic cocktails, though. Okay.
Yes, alcoholic cocktails. So just like our pie draft, Gel, I want to know what your top 3 cocktails are. You can either start from the top and go down or work your way 3 to 1. What are your 3 cocktails?
All right. Number 3. House margarita. Ooh. I just, especially on a hot day, obviously, especially paired with even just like, I don't necessarily need a house marg with a full meal, because a house marg can like be pretty like kind of filling on its own with all the like syrup and sugar and everything.
And usually you're munching on some chips and salsa at the same time too.
So I was gonna say paired with chips and salsa or nice. Queso. That's gonna be number 3 on my list. Number 2, a refreshing mojito. Little minty action. It's not one that I would order. Obviously, you're not gonna order a mojito at probably most bars unless you're at a cocktail bar, and in that case they usually do them right. So a nice refreshing mojito. Also, that was my first legal drink when in America I was underage, but when I went to France at the age of 20, and we went to a bar, my first legal drink in Europe was a mojito. So I've got some good vibes there. And number 1, a Moscow Mule. I had a couple of those this past weekend, and shocker, and they were delicious. I love a good Moscow. We also you may have had or heard of a Kentucky Mule, which is bourbon instead of vodka, but I prefer the vodka. I prefer the classic Moscow myself. I find it a little bit more refreshing. That's what I'm looking for the most part in a cocktail. Nice, refreshing, something that slides down the throat nicely. And we're keeping this episode clean, so don't make a joke here.
Honorable mention. You want to get fucked up? Have a Long Island.
Oh, good OLI. I like it. Outside looking in. I like it.
Yes. Number 3 is a maple smash. So you're going to throw in some bourbon, a little maple syrup, lemon, and a mint leaf, and throw that on ice. And it is very, very refreshing. So like those. Number 2, going to join you on the Marg Train Gel. Frozen, on the rocks, doesn't matter. I prefer on the rocks.
Do you go with strawberry or
no? House for sure.
Days.
Yeah, yep. With on the rocks with a salt rim.
See, I go on the rocks.
No salt.
Down here though, I can get tahini.
Ooh,
So for those of you that is tahini national, it probably is, but or maybe
probably.
not. It's like a chili powder, salt, lime
It's
mixture.
amazing.
Also amazing in guac. Use that
Okay.
in guac instead of just regular salt, so you get a little extra chili flavor, a little extra lime flavor for any of you guac connoisseurs out there.
Love it. My number one, it's a bourbon old
I
fashioned.
kind of figured an old fashioned was going to be on
Old
the list.
fashioned for sure. Hands down, my go to. Doesn't matter where, I'll drink it. But cocktail bars make better ones than just your run of the mill bar. That's for sure.
Days for days.
Any honorable mentions from you, Joe?
You named it with the Long
Long
Island. God, I don't
Island.
know the last time I've ordered one. Probably college, but shoot, man, that shit gets
That'll
the
get your
job
day
done.
started
Or just
and ended all in one drink.
hey, if you want to start and end your day or end your day or night, just grab yourself a solo fish bowl.
Right.
Yikes!
We could
Did
be
that
fun.
once.
Yikes.
I
Not great,
ended
Bob.
up getting a ride home from the 5-0. Made it all the way. They did take me home though.
Nice.
Thank you, some police officer in Milwaukee.
Attaboy.
Hey, we've all been there. Well, maybe not, but
We can be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on Facebook at Dead Arm Sports. As Joe mentioned before, you want to see his dog Sunny, go to YouTube, type in Dead Arm Sports, subscribe, click the bell there. That way you know when our live episodes drop. We monitor that chat. You can ask us any questions there. Otherwise, hit us up on our socials at Dead Arm Sports, at DOS Gel, at DOS JPAC. You can ask us any questions there. Make sure you give us a follow, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite listening platform. Send us a screenshot of that written review that you wrote, and we will get you some Dead Arm Sports swag for free. Couple NFL tidbits here and takes. I want to start off with some Lamar Jackson rumors that have come out. Apparently, doesn't want to be in Baltimore anymore, and again, it still doesn't have an actual agent, another representative. But what's the latest there, Jill?
yeah, he straight up said that, or there's some. It's not 100% clear, but because he doesn't have an agent, but rumor has it that
Rumor has it
is that he is quote unquote done with the Ravens. I'm not surprised by that at all at this point. I mean, could you even see him coming back there? And if the Ravens, if somebody were to offer, let's say Atlanta offers, their first 2 round, because they have to give up their first round pick, or their first round pick in next year's first. If Atlanta were to offer that and offer 45 million per year over 5 years with 200 guaranteed, if the Ravens match that, what do you even see if the Ravens would match that, or could you see that? I feel like both parties are done here.
It kind of feels that way. There hasn't been any good vibes that have been coming out of this organization or Lamar in regards to each other since the beginning of last season, probably. I mean, it seemed like they were destined for a divorce when he wasn't coming back and playing towards the end of the season. Baltimore misses the playoffs, but I don't know. I think at this point you have to move on, but at the same time too, what do? You're not going to get one of the quarterbacks if you're getting Atlanta's pick unless somebody falls. I mean, I think your best bet right now is the Colts swoop in at number 4. You can at least grab a quarterback at number 4. It might not be your top pick that you have, but I don't know. I mean, hope Atlanta sucks, but I mean, whatever team he goes to next year, you have to assume that they're probably borderline playoff team. So you're not going to be in the conversation for one of the top quarterbacks next year if he ends up going there. So I don't know.
But what if one of these, like, okay, let's say Washington sitting here right now at 16 goes out and offers 5 year or God, this is so much money. 5 years, 50 million and
per season.
50
right?
million per season
Okay,
over. Yeah. 250 total. And they guarantee 231 just to get 1 million over that Deshaun Watson number, which is what Deshaun might want. Do you see the Ravens making that? There's no way they're going to make that kind of a commitment to Lamar. And then they're stuck with that number 16 pick. And who's going to be left there? Tanner McGee out of Stanford. I mean, you're looking at like the third or fourth tier of quarterbacks that are available in this draft. So, I mean, and then at that point, hey, at least they got Pro Bowler Tyler Huntley on staff. But, and then what do you think of her, I guess, from Lamar's standpoint? Do you understand like why he'd say, I'm done with this squad and I'd rather play anywhere else? I mean, Baltimore is one of those franchises that is always in the mix. They're one of the more well-run franchises over the last 2 decades plus. You know, basically since they returned to Baltimore, they've been really well run. So it surprises me that it's gotten to this point where it seems like they can't, bandage this thing together and partner back up, but kind of feels like that at this point. It's just been so much. There's been just so much turbulence, and it's gone on we're looking at 2 years now. They had an opportunity to give him a long-term deal after his 3rd year, and they didn't. And now they're like, oh shit, quarterback market's gone up. Not a shocker to any of us, but right. Apparently a shocker to them. And he's maintained his play. Now, granted, he has missed a ton of games, but I think if he was playing on a 45 plus or on a $40+ million contract, he would have been playing at the end of last year.
Yeah.
So I guess I get it that there's bad blood on both sides. Shout out to Taylor Swift.
Yeah, and I don't know that you can really fault the Baltimore Ravens organization as far as they've tried to put pieces around him to make him successful too. They've drafted 2 first-round quarterbacks, Hollywood Brown, Rashad Bateman, wide receivers. Yeah. J.K. Dobbins coming in too for that running back position. I mean, they, like you said, they're perennial playoff contenders. The only thing that you can fault Baltimore for is they're just kind of complacent. I mean, you know what you're going to be getting out of them. They're not going to be making a deep run into the playoffs, and they're going to be making the playoffs, or at least in the conversation at the end of the season. So that's maybe the only thing, but I mean, if you're Lamar, are you really happy going to another organization that maybe isn't as well run? I don't know. It's a weird situation that
if you go to one of these desperate teams like a Washington, and we'll dive into that once we get to the tier section. I've got a number of teams that I think Lamar would fit great in and could change the future of those franchises. So we'll dive into that a little bit later.
Yep. What can you tell us about Lucas Van Ness, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, when I look at Lucas Van Ness, he is 272 pounds. He's a 272-pound edge rusher out of Iowa, and he has a 6-pack. He's 272 pounds, and he has a 6-pack. I just see Clay Matthews 2.0 out of this guy. I've already, just from looking at some of these, some mock drafts so far, early on in the season, or early on in, I guess, mock draft season, it was kind of looking like he was going to go mid, or probably more like late first round, somewhere in the mid 20s, maybe possibly end of the first. I'm looking at some now, and I've got, one mock draft has him going at 20. I'm seeing another mock draft going with him going at 10, and as the second edge rusher behind Will Anderson. That's ahead of Miles Murphy out of Clemson, who we were thinking he was going to be a top 8, top 10 pick.
Yeah.
And he's now behind Nolan Smith out of Georgia, another edge rusher that's behind him. He's making a really, really steep climb. And I think it's extremely reasonable. I think that Clay Matthews 2.0 is a perfect. I think Clay Matthews is a perfect comp for Lucas Van Ness. So whatever you're looking at in terms of mock drafts, whatever you're seeing, whether it's CBS, ESPN, NFL Network, whatever, if they don't have him in the top 10 by the time we get into the NFL draft season, grab him. If you're somebody that bets and you're able to bet on the NFL draft now, take a look where they have him. Take a look where they have his over under. And I guarantee he gets picked before wherever that over under is. I'm going to put some money on it myself, probably once we get done recording before I forget. But
some Monopoly money, right, Joe?
Of course. Yeah. Entertainment purposes only. And no, I think this guy's a freak. You don't see 6'72", 272 pounders with six packs out there that are just freaks too often falling outside that top 10. So that's my
high. He had a solid 40 time too, didn't he? Wasn't right. Sub 4.5?
He's just gone off at the combine. So if you can still get some value on him, if you're a Monopoly money better, I say jump on that now. Because I think there's, by the time we get to the draft, there's no question. In terms of the edge rushers, it's going to be Will Anderson and then Lucas Van Ness falling right after him.
Nice. No, he's definitely somebody that has risen up draft boards recently. And again, Combine does that. And he's somebody that not as polished, but he is just a freak athletically that can make up for it. So absolutely.
And also similar to Clay Matthews didn't start for the majority of his career at USC. Lucas Van Ness, same thing. I don't know if it's one of those things where he didn't fit into their scheme. I mean, if you know Luke Ferentz at all, he's about as stubborn of a son of a bitch as you can find for a coach. So he's probably like, hey, you're not falling into my scheme. You're going to be a whatever, part-time player. So
good old Kirk.
Good old Ferentz.
All right, let's move into NFL tier rankings. Maybe we'll list a team here that could use the skill set of Lucas Van Ness to get them out of a current category they are in. But we've got 4 categories for you today. We're going to touch on all 32 NFL teams, go division by division here, and then recap and tell you out of each tier which team we most want to be and least want to be. Again, our categories, touched on them at the top of the show. We're going to have a rebuilding category. So this is a team that has either started their rebuild this offseason or maybe they're a year or two into it, but they're trending in the right direction in that rebuild at least. Next tier is going to be a team that is kind of just clinging to the past. They need to embrace a rebuild, but maybe they're not doing it at this point in time. Maybe they partially started to do so, but not the full on like they need to. The third tier is going to be go hard to win now and sacrifice the future. So this is a team in win now mode, and who gives a shit 4 or 5 years down the road. We have to have our window right now.
And I want to just a little clarifying piece to that, like similar to what the Rams did, where they just basically gave up draft capital, just a ton of it, to go get guys like a Jalen Ramsey, Matthew Stafford, obviously, and some other pieces. So just to clarify exactly what we mean there.
Yep. And then the last one is just one or two pieces away, either via trade or maybe they try and get that impact player in the upcoming draft. So those are our 4 categories here. Why don't we start, Joe? We usually either go east to west or west to east. Let's go never eat shredded wheat. Let's go north, east, south, and then finish up with the west. So we'll start with the North Division. I'll let you kick it off. You can decide if we're heading to the AFC or NFC.
Let's go to the AFC. And I'm going to start with the mess of a franchise of the Cleveland Browns. I'm in the camp where, and I know that obviously Cleveland won't do this, but I think that they need to embrace that they need to rebuild. after seeing Deshaun Watson's performance last year, which was, I know that he was basically off for, what was it, almost 2 years there, up until the final 5 games. But I don't know what kind of player he is anymore. They did go after and get a solid number 2 this week earlier this week in Elijah Moore, and they do have Amari Cooper, but is Amari Cooper a true number 1? There's been rumors about them moving off of Nick Chubb for salary purposes. Kareem Hunt, still a free agent. They're moving off of Jadeveon Clowney. They do have some nice pieces. I mean, Myles Garrett is one of the most dominant defensive players in the league, but they've got all those nice pieces, and Deshaun's there for another 4 years. I don't think it would be a bad idea for them to maybe not tear the whole thing down. You keep a guy like an Elijah Moore that you just traded for, but move off an Amari Cooper, move off of a Nick Chubb. It looks like they're already moving off of Hunt. You got to keep Myles Garrett around, but I think that they could I think it would be in their best interest if they were to kind of embrace maybe not a full rebuild, but at least a partial rebuild, more of like a reset, than just going in the continuing direction that they're in, because I don't see, based on their current roster and how Deshaun Watson played in those final 5-6 games last year, that they're going to be any good this year or even next year, especially if they move off, especially if they're already thinking, hey, we might want to move off of Chubb.
Yeah, I put them in the rebuilding category because they are trying to do some sort of rebuild. They're just doing it the wrong way. They're bringing in veteran pieces to try and rebuild, get those key pieces in. But I don't think it's going to end up working out. Like you'd mentioned, Deshaun is there. Who knows if he's ever going to get back to his MVP caliber days that he had down in Houston. But again, you got Myles Garrett on defense. You got a nice piece there. I like the Elijah Moore acquisition. I think an offseason of Deshaun working with the team, and maybe he can right the ship a little bit, but I think they do need to hit the draft here too with the rebuild. Nick Chubb, how long is he going to be going in the running back position? He keeps going, but I mean, one of these years he's going to fall off quite a bit. So I think you need to bring in another
physical he
back.
Runs and how much wear and tear he already has.
Yep. So that's where I have them just sitting at that. Again, they're rebuilding. I think they did try to essentially start over, but that was giving Deshaun a huge contract, trading for Amari Cooper, and just, again, it's the Browns. I mean, would you expect anything less? But it's their own way of rebuilding.
And I mentioned this before. I sit here and wonder, they're just bringing in additional. I mean, Elijah Moore was dysfunctional with the Jets, and now the Browns are just continuing to embrace dysfunction. They're adding Elijah Moore, mad talented, but so was Josh Gordon. They just can't. I just feel like they keep stepping with the wrong foot first.
They have 2 left feet.
2 left feet. That's what it feels like.
I'm going to jump over to a team that we mentioned up in the tidbits, and that's the Baltimore Ravens right now. I think they're in that need to embrace and start over, and it kind of looks like that's what they're going to end up doing, whether that is letting Tyler Huntley take the reins here and just kind of sacrificing the future and just seeing what ends up happening from that. I know it's not pretty, but they need to. Something has to change. You tried to let your team run its course, and I almost wonder too if that's after this season, just kind of letting John Harbaugh go too. I think he's a phenomenal coach. He's going to get another head coaching job right away, but I think you need some sort of change, and a big change in that organization, just because it's been the same old every year. It's flirting with that playoff spot and an early exit, it seems like. So I've got them in that number 2 category.
Yep, I've got them in the same category. It's time for them to just embrace that rebuild. We just discussed Lamar, and that seems like that partnership is over. And at that point, what are you hanging on to? Lamar's been the only reason for your success over the last couple of years, and if you don't have him, you got to move off of him. I don't know what kind of draft pick they can get for Lamar. Would Indy be interested? If that's the case and they can get the number 4 pick, hell yeah, then you absolutely just grab a quarterback there at number 4. But I think, and even if you can't, it's time to move off Lamar. We had mentioned, I agree with your John Harbaugh piece there, where I have him already on that way too early hot seat from one of our final episodes in season 2, where when we were discussing our way too early hot seats, because Harbaugh hasn't done squat really in terms of any playoff success since that Joe Flacco Super Bowl back in the 2000s. So, and he's a good coach, but like you said, he'll get another job, but let's move on. He hasn't done enough lately. Let's get over to their Sunday night football rivals, the Pittsburgh Steelers, on at least once a year on Sunday night football.
Right.
For
lock it in.
And I'm going to put them as one of those teams that's currently in a rebuild. I like what they're doing. Kenny Pickett showed a lot more promise on the back half of the season than he did in his first 4 to 6 starts. So I like the future of him. They do need to really still continue focusing on building up that offensive line. Najee Harris is way too good of a back to average under 4 yards a carry as he did last season. And the stalwart of that Steelers offense has been in the past the running back position and being able to run the ball. So, and the key to that, you got to build up that offensive line, whether that's at this point, you probably can't really pay for it, but continue to draft that offensive line. They also definitely need to go after some secondary pieces. Joe Hayden's gone, who was kind of that number 1 DB for 3-4 years. He left. They've also lost, I believe, 1 guy to the Lions. So they need to rebuild that secondary, but they have nice pieces. I like Kenny Pickett. George Pickens is awesome. Najee Harris is sweet. Deontay Johnson's nice. Freiermuth is nice. So they've got the skill positions there. They just really need to build up pretty much everything else. Both sides of both lines, that secondary, and I think they're going to be ready to be back to the Pittsburgh Steelers that we know, that we grew up with.
Yeah, I've got them in rebuild mode right now. And like you said, it's a Steelers organization. It's one of the best run organizations in all of any professional sport, not just football. So I trust that they're going to be headed in the right direction here. Got TJ Watt on that defensive line. That's a perennial MVP defensive player of the year candidate there. So I have all the faith in the world that Pittsburgh will be a couple years away from being competing again. Still a little torn on Pickett. He did look good towards the end of the season.
He got better. I'm not sold saying that he's like going to be a stud, but
yeah, he's serviceable for now and has promise. Right. So jury's still out, but he's trending in a good direction at least. Last team in the division here is we're on to Cincinnati, and for me, it's that category 4, 1 major trade away or a piece. They're just stacked right now. I mean, like Joe Burrow came out and said, he's like, as long as I'm a quarterback in the NFL, we're going to be Super Bowl contenders every year. And I don't doubt it at all. That team is awesome. They were phenomenal this last season. A little bit of an early exit, but I mean, it's that's what happens.
But I mean,
run into
but look at that AFC. It's
yeah, exactly. So it's a tough conference, but I mean, yeah, there's not much else to say here. Shore up that line. I mean, you just brought in Orlando Brown, other left tackle. I'm forgetting his name, but he wants a trade. So we'll see what ends up happening. Yeah, it's something like that. But
he was their starting left tackle last year, was Jonah Williams.
But... Okay. Yep. But so we'll see what comes from that. Add a couple pieces on defense, 2 safeties left. So I need to get some guys in the draft. And again, they're going to have to rebuild through the draft because Joe Burrow is going to be getting paid here. So
it is Jonah Williams.
Okay.
Obviously same thing here. One major move away. I would love to see Jonah Williams stay in that left tackle spot and then move Orlando Brown over to the right tackle spot, but they just gave Orlando Brown hella money not to play right tackle. So, and Orlando Brown's, I believe, only 26, so he's still young. And also on top of that, you got to take advantage of Joe Burrow on his rookie deal. He's going to be getting a massive extension once he gets past year 5. Is that when that kicks in? Would it be his year 6?
Yeah, because they can pick up his 5th-year option. So
then he'll have that extension going into year 6. You got to take advantage of that rookie deal. You said never eat soggy waffles. Oh no, let's stay in the NFC North.
Yep.
Let's start with Green Bay, I guess. And
let's do it.
This one's a little bit, I'm like 50-50 on this one. I'm in between rebuild and one piece away. And it all for me comes down to Jordan Love. Sacrifice the future for now. I guess whatever. Okay. Doesn't matter. Same kind of thing, but more in the rebuild side. And that just depends on how Jordan Love plays. Because if Jordan Love is legit, I believe what is the trade deadline? Generally week like 8. They moved it back
somewhere in there.
It used to be week 6. I think now it's week 8. If they go into that trade deadline 6-2 and he looks really good like he did against Philly, then go after it. Then go and try to make a run. That NFC North is pretty weak right now. I don't know how much time you have because the Bears are up and coming. The Lions are up and coming. Go for it. Like if Jordan Love is good, go for it. And if he sucks, then you go into that. Then I think you go into more of a rebuild mode. They're currently in they're in this weird like hybrid mode right now where they've got veterans, high dollar veterans like an Aaron Jones, a number of defensive pieces, but they've also got young guys like Love, like Christian Watson, like the who's that second receiver out of
Romeo
Dobbs. I think they're in this just like this in-between phase, and it's all going to come down to Jordan Love. If Love is good, go make some deadline moves. If he's not, embrace the rebuild and go draft another guy in the first round next year. So I think they're kind of in this in-between spot. I don't know. Let me kick it over to you.
Yeah, I had them in between, but I was between the rebuilding and need to embrace that they need to start over. And
that's
I had
probably more appropriate.
I put them into category 2 because Aaron Rodgers is still technically on the roster right now. So I think if you trade him away, then I would move them over into that rebuilding category. You let some of those big contracts.
Well, I'm just assuming Rodgers is gone.
Yeah, well, I've just kind of had it as he's not yet. So I've got him as 2, but rebuilding, Lazard's gone, Tanyan's gone. You cut some of those more veteran guys.
Hopefully Randall Cobb is gone.
They have a lot of young guys on that roster. So again, a lot of this is going to fall into what Jordan Love can do. And we'll see. He looked good in that second half against Philly. He's looked good at times, but yeah, again, it's all going to tie into that, and we'll see. With rebuild, though, I think that's
fire's
probably
finally going. Let's go.
Attaboy.
Took a while.
I'm going to move over to Minnesota, and Minnesota I have in the go hard to win now and sacrifice the future. I think this is at the point in time, Kirk Cousins is on his last year. You don't know what that quarterback position is going to look like after that. Hopefully they don't sign him to an extension. Otherwise, I think they immediately move into that number 2 category, but I've got them right now. They again, you mentioned the North is very weak right now. They should be the favorites going into the season for that division. Detroit's going to be a team that's going to be competing with them. I think this year, the Packers, if Jordan Love is legit, could be competing with them this year. So I think they need to set themselves apart and know that their window is right now, maybe next year, depending on what the quarterback looks like. But I think this is a season for them to go all in to try and win.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Kirk Cousins, surprisingly 34 years old. He spent 5 years, or what was it? Probably 5 years at Michigan State, at least 4. He spent those 4 years at Washington. And then now he's on his second third-year contract with the Vikings. So yeah, he's 34 already. You can't, like, now, if you're like, go for it now. And if it doesn't work out, then next offseason, blow it all up. Dalvin Cook, 27. We know that's old for a running back, which, sorry, but that's the reality. Harrison Smith, he's been kind of the, main name on that defense for a long time. He's 34. Danielle Hunter came on as a really dominant defensive player just probably about 2 years ago. He's 28. I mean, those are 4 of their top players, and I think you have to go for it now. And if it doesn't work out, then blow it up next off season. But now is the time to make your move. Maybe this is one of those DeAndre Hopkins types of destinations.
Yeah, very well could be.
And they need to help that defense out a ton. Let's go over to the Lions, just because I want to hear your take on the Bears. I want you to kick that one off. Let's go to the Lions. I've also got them in the same category as the Vikings, where go hard now and sacrifice for the future. Again, I don't know if they're a good enough team. They missed the playoffs last year. I don't know if this is a team that can make a super hard run in the NFC, but if you look at some of their offense or some of their offseason moves, like, they were very close to making the playoffs last year. They grabbed Cameron Sutton, a corner, CJ Gardner-Johnson, a safety, David Montgomery, former Bears running back. There's no clear division leader. There's really no clear conference leader right now. I mean, you'd put Philly and San Fran at the top, but you never know. We don't know what San Francisco's quarterback situation is going to be. We don't know what Philly's situation is going to be, if they're going to have some sort of Super Bowl hangover. They did re-sign a good number of guys, but they also let their starting running back go. They let CJ Gardner-Johnson go to the Lions. And I think the number one reason that the Lions need to pounce, no pun intended, now is because Ben Johnson, their offensive coordinator, is still there. I think he's due for a head coaching job. I was saying that before this offseason. He decided to stick around. I think he's due for he's due for a head coaching job after this season. So I think now is the time for Detroit. I know that's taking a risk, because that team does still have, especially defensively, a number of missing pieces, but I feel like they solved a ton, at least they attempted to solve a ton of those holes with their defense, with the signings of CJ Gardner-Johnson and Cameron Sutton.
I took a more conservative route with this team and put them in the rebuilding category right now. And I think Detroit's finally doing it the right way. They've got a lot of young guys in there to mix in with some veterans. They've got a solid defense. I like the way Dan Campbell's running this team. Got David Montgomery in on a second contract. He's still fairly young. And the only thing that I wonder about their future is that quarterback position. Jared Goff's been fine, but what happens in the next offseason when his contract's going to be up? Do you extend him? Is it time to try and find your quarterback of the future? So I have them kind of firmly in that rebuilding, but are going to be competing for that division this year. So
what do you think that they should do, given that you have them in that rebuilding spot? They've got the number 6 pick right now. What do you think the move is? Is there even going to be a quarterback there at 6 if they just sit there?
I don't think so. If you do, it's probably going to be a Will Levis. If you're Detroit though, and Anthony Richardson falls, that would be one that would be intriguing for
Pretty
me to have him
ideal.
sit behind Jared Goff for a year and possibly be that quarterback that you plug in there. So no, they're gonna have to figure it out. And again, they're kind of in that weird position where you have that veteran quarterback that's serviceable, that's doing good for your team. Probably not worth huge quarterback money that they're going to be getting, and you're going to be decent this year, not going to have a good draft pick next year for another quarterback. So you're kind of in that purgatory where if they don't think Goff is going to be their quarterback of the future, maybe you do look to make a move this draft to try and get a quarterback that you can sit. Last team, you alluded to it, Joe. It's the Bears. I have them in that rebuilding category right now. They have made some really nice moves this offseason. I really like it a lot. I'm very curious to see what they do in the draft. You've got DJ Moore coming in to help out with Justin Fields. Got guard out of Tennessee that they brought over, and obviously TJ Edmonds coming in on that line for linebacker position, paired up with some nice corners that they currently have, and Eddie Jackson at safety. So I don't expect the Bears to be competing for the division this year. I expect them to have taken a step forward and like the direction that they're going for once. I mean, it's been bad the last since 06 pretty much, outside
Sexy
of a couple
Rexy
playoff appearances here and there, and the neck beard Kyle Orton.
All right.
but yeah, I got them in the rebuilding category.
Yep, for sure. Here, I think there's going to be somebody available at 9 that it's I mean, do you see Jalen Carter possibly being available there?
I mean, he got dropped down to a misdemeanor, but he couldn't even complete his pro day at Georgia. So that also kind of scares me a little bit, that I don't know. They didn't do what I wanted them to at the tackle position. So I think that's where they have to go in that first round.
Or not Ben
you have to
get
either Skronsky or Paris Johnson out of Ohio State.
I think that's probably the right move.
Guys.
That's probably the right move at 9. Next, I guess, follow-up question there just regarding that quarterback position. Could Justin Fields turn into Jalen Hurts? Jalen Hurts made that jump after year 3. This is now during year 3. This is now Justin Fields year 3. He's got more weapons. They brought in DJ Moore. They certainly don't have the line, obviously, that the Eagles have. But could we see some sort of a jump like that? And could you see that? Maybe not right this year, but could we see him turn into Jalen Hurts, who I think at this point, I think you and I agree, Jalen Hurts is the best quarterback in the NFC.
Yeah, I think he could. It's obviously he's going to have to get his passing down, and it's going to help with a big target and awesome receiver in DJ Moore. You've got Darnell Mooney, Chase Claypool there, and Cole Kmet. So he has all of the pieces outside of a running back right now, I guess. Khalil Herbert looked good at times, and Deonta Foreman, I don't know why, but whatever.
Depth back. That's it.
Yeah. But I think he needs to, though. He needs to make some big improvement this year, because if they find themselves in the top 5 again next year, whether that is Carolina's pick or their own pick, there's going to be talks of, you've got Caleb Williams, Drake May.
If he doesn't do it this year, he's out.
Yeah. So he has to show improvement. Otherwise, if the Bears have a top 5 pick next year, I expect them to make a move and try to find a quarterback and restart that rookie quarterback contract clock too.
Well, we're on E for never eat soggy waffles. Let's jump over to the AFC East.
Sounds good.
I'm going to kick it off with the Jets, and I've got them, and they seem to be embracing the go hard to win now, sacrifice the future. I mean, obviously, the Aaron deal seems like it's done. They already went and signed Nathaniel Hackett to be their offensive coordinator. Alan Lazard as, I guess, now the wide receiver 2 in New York, given that Elijah Moore's out. So, and Braxton Berrios is out. I thought that was a mistake. I feel like Berrios and Rodgers would have been a nice, could have been a nice combo for some, just some, some underneath stuff. But yeah, I mean, where are you sitting on that? I feel like this one's pretty easy.
Yeah, I don't have anything more to add really to that. I've got them in the win now, and that seems to be the clear and obvious choice here with them going after Aaron Rodgers.
What's interesting about this is that Nathaniel Hackett joined after Jordan Love got picked. That's when Nathaniel Hackett joined Green Bay, or at least took over the offensive coordinator role in Green Bay. And Rodgers had his 2 MVP years. Nathaniel Hackett leaves to Denver, and Rodgers' play plummets. Can Rodgers then, now that he's back under Hackett, get back to that? I mean, I'm not saying he's going to get back to MVP type of numbers, but maybe he gets back to being a really, really nice player.
Yep. I'm going to jump over to one that I don't have a ton on either, and that's the New England Patriots. I've got them and the need to embrace that they need to start over, and that's at the quarterback position too. I don't think Mac Jones is ever going to pan out and be a future quarterback for that franchise, and I don't know. This kind of falls into that Baltimore as well. Once Tom Brady left, Bill Belichick hasn't really done a whole lot there where he's your obviously best coach in franchise history, but maybe it's time to kind of part ways and just kind of restart the entire thing over. And I think that's what New England has to do here. Do you really have anybody on that team that you're like, yeah, this is a cornerstone piece right now that in the playmaker position? I mean, Ramondre Stevenson looks okay, but outside of that, I mean, nobody. I mean, you haven't drafted wide receiver that's been relevant ever. So it's like
Mac Jones ain't it. He's not worth a damn. They have no dynamic skill position players. They're just extremely average across the board. They don't have anybody dynamic or terrible. They're just average as hell. I think the only way that this team could be relevant whatsoever is if they were to go after Lamar. But then you're just basically looking at Ravens 2.0, where Baltimore didn't really have anybody dynamic either. And maybe you can win the division, or maybe you can compete to win a division and get a wild card spot. But it's rebuild for me, or it's they need to embrace the rebuild. And that may include Robert Kraft having that really difficult conversation with Bill Belichick and saying, sorry, man, like, I won't fire you, but can you resign?
Right.
Let's go down to Miami. Miami's already they've already been very aggressive this offseason, getting Jalen Ramsey, sending over a 3rd round pick for him, committing that money to him. I don't know that. I mean, they have that money available to afford Jalen Ramsey because Tyreek Hill restructured his massive contract. But I think they're one move away. And that one move might be, let's just embrace this Lamar Jackson conversation. Like, I know they did sign Tua to his 5th year option, and they looked good when Tua was healthy, but what can we rely on Tua at all? I don't think we can. There's no chance. No, okay, let me answer that. We cannot. So I think that maybe that one move away is grabbing a Lamar Jackson. The rest of that roster is really stacked. We saw a lot of success with Tua, but if he goes down, you've got Mike White. If you grab Lamar, that's going to be one of the most fun teams of all time. One of the, at least definitely the fastest team of all time.
Yeah, no, I've got them in that category 4 too, that one major trade away. For that reason too, they are just that quarterback position. It was kind of surprising that they picked up Tua's 5th year option. I mean, he was good last year, but it's just his health that scares the crap out of me, and I don't know what to expect there. So I agree. If Lamar went in there, that would be a heck of a team to watch. And I don't know if they do it. I doubt it. I just don't really see Miami going ahead and doing that at all, but definitely something that they should at least consider, because I think Lamar would put you into that Cincinnati, Kansas City role in that AFC where you could be a legit contender for a Super Bowl. Last team there, Buffalo Bills. I think this one's pretty obvious too. This is a one major trade away or one piece away. And I think that's the running back position in Buffalo. You need to find somebody to take some of that pressure off of Josh Allen, leave some of his rushing duties that he needs, keep him in the pocket so he's not getting just blasted every play. We saw him banged up last year because they just don't know how to utilize that running back position. And maybe that one major piece away is finding a quarterback, new head coach that
honestly, that's
get this team figured out, because you have so many solid pieces on this team that it just feels wasted the last couple of years that you haven't even gotten to the Super Bowl.
Do you see them moving up for a Bijan?
I mean, I'd like to think that they
okay,
would, but if they're
just
gonna,
so you know, I'm in agreement with you. One piece away.
yeah, but I just think Bijan would be wasted there if they don't switch it up and utilize their running back position. I mean, maybe they haven't had that guy that they feel comfortable in that workhorse role, but
my notes are pretty much 1000% in agreement with you. I said either Bijan or embrace, in all caps, the run game. Like, they have to do something here. You can't have Josh Allen, your $230 million quarterback, running the way that he is.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so off to the NFC East.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's start it off with Philly, the reigning NFC champions. I'm going one move away on this as well. They obviously made the Super Bowl. No need to rebuild or anything like that. They did lose some pieces, as you mentioned, TJ Edwards being one, Miles Sanders, as mentioned, being another. But I think this one move that could set them over the top could be trade or recent trade block running back Austin Eckler. I think he'd fit really nice in that offense, being that he's, a receiving back. He doesn't need to, Jalen Hurts can do a lot of the running up the middle. Eckler can do a lot of the stuff on the outside. Eckler ran that RPO offense with Justin Herbert in San Diego or in LA. So I think Austin Eckler may be that one piece away. Now, I don't know if they can afford that contract that he wants, but especially because they do want to give Hurts his massive extension that he's due. But that may be the one piece that they are missing, is an Austin Eckler type of, all-purpose back.
Yep. Yeah, I put them in that category too. Obviously, you have your quarterback of the future in Jalen Hurts, and have just a solid team there all around. Two solid wide receivers, and solid defense. We'll see. Again, you mentioned they lost some key pieces, lost both of their coordinators, offense and defense. So we'll see what ends up happening there. But again, they're going to be a solid team. They're going to be right up there for their division, competing in a weak NFC. So I've got them in that one major piece away. Moving down to your neck of the wood, Gel, to Dallas. I also have them in the same category right now. I think they did good in cutting Zeke. He did not have any life left in his legs last couple of years. So I like that they're embracing Tony Pollard, having him come in, traded for Brandon Cooks, solid piece to go alongside CeeDee Lamb. We'll see what they do with the tight end, if that is Jake Ferguson, like we talked about yesterday, or if they address that in the draft. And you've got some solid pieces on defense as well. So I do like Dallas, and the one move away is probably bringing in a different head coach and Mike McCarthy, getting rid of him. And maybe, I don't know, Dak still scares me. I don't know that he's ever going to win a Super Bowl or take a team to a Super Bowl. But again, Dallas, they're not in rebuild mode. They don't need to restart this. They've got too many good pieces there. And I don't know really what you would do to sacrifice the future there either. They have a lot of pieces right now. So I put them in that one major piece away.
I've got them in that sacrifice the future for now.
Okay.
And
Lamar.
no, no, this is the one team that I don't have Lamar on. I just think I don't think they're one piece away. I think they're close, but I don't think it's one piece away. Now, maybe one piece away from winning the division, but they haven't made a conference championship game since 97 or 98 or something. It's been 25 plus years. I don't know. So I say do what they made kind of the first move in that by getting Brandon Cooks and sacrificed a little bit of a future. Granted, it's a 5th and 6th round pick, but they only have so much of this window left where you've got, they're with Dak. Dak's not as young as you think either. He was a 5-year starter at Mississippi State. Jerry is as old as you think. He wants to win a Super Bowl before he's we won't get too morbid. And CeeDee Lamb is due pretty quick here for a big money extension. So I think that they have to kind of go for broke here. And the only thing is, knowing Jerry and knowing listening to some of the comments that he said, he's like, I don't want to be like the Eagles where I go all out for 1 year of success, even though they've done that twice and won a title and then made the Super Bowl the other time they did that. Jerry's just, he just wants to be in all these games on Fox and everything. Doesn't want to be terrible. But I think that it's time for them to go sacrifice the future for some more star players. Trayvon Diggs and Stephon Diggs, they've been flirting with each other a lot on Twitter this offseason. I don't think that the Bills are going to be willing to give up Stephon Diggs, but you get the point. I think they should sacrifice some picks, go for broke, and try to get it, because this NFC really is still wide open. As previously mentioned, we don't know what's going on in the San Francisco quarterback room. Why not go for it now? Especially if Rodgers leaves the division or leaves the conference. Dak might be the 3rd, 4th best quarterback in the conference then at that point. Obviously behind Brock Purdy. Let's go over to, I guess, 3rd place in the division. The New York Giants. They're currently not doing this, and that's why I'm so fucking critical of them, is that they need to embrace a rebuild.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones ain't the guy. Where does he rank? Is he number 18 in the league at quarterback? He threw 15 touchdowns last year.
Terrible.
And Saquon he just got the franchise tag. What's left after this season? Once Saquon's gone, what do they have? They need to just embrace this rebuild. They screwed this whole thing up from the start by in my opinion, giving Daniel Jones this 4-year contract. They screwed this up, but I think now, or I guess after this season, they need to embrace this rebuild. It's too late now, but after this season, they need to.
Yep. I don't really have anything else to add there. They fucked up when they re-signed Daniel Jones to that massive deal, and they should have embraced the rebuild, kickstarted it, and just went from there. Because I think they're going to be in hell the next 4 years till that contract's up. Moving over to Washington, I've got them in the number 1 category, the rebuilding. I think they've got some nice pieces in the wide receiver, Jahan Dotson over there, and Terry McLaurin, and they're a quarterback away. They're giving Sam Howell a shot as of right now, so we'll see what ends up happening there. But I like that. You drafted a guy last year that had some potential, that would have been a first-round pick had he come out the year before, and see what he has. If he doesn't pan out, then perfect. You're in a top 5 pick next year in a great quarterback class. So I like Washington. They've got some solid pieces on defense too. Trying to think, Chase Young on the defensive line over there. So I like what they're doing. It's Washington, and hopefully this deal for Snyder's get out of there and they can get some competent people in the upper echelon of this organization. But definitely in the rebuild category.
Yeah, I've got them in the rebuild spot as well. Deron Payne was just signed, one of the more dominant defensive tackles in the league. He was just signed to a pretty nice deal. Chase Young is the next one that's due for a big deal. I think they're doing it right with a young rookie quarterback right now, or I guess it'll be second year with Sam Howell, but on that rookie contract with him, Jahan Dotson, same draft, Scary Terry. I like some of their pieces. They just got a little bit of a ways to go, but ultimately I like them in the rebuilding spot. I think they're doing it right. And yeah, you're right. Let's get Daniel Snyder out of there. Do you want to kick off the next division?
Sure. We will go over to the AFC South, and I'll kick it off with Houston. I think this one's pretty obvious. They're in rebuild mode right now. So have a number 2 pick in the draft, looking for their quarterback
really
in the future.
They don't have anything to blow up.
Yeah, nothing to blow up. So they're in rebuild mode.
Yeah, I liked what they've added a ton of like B level pieces in terms of Singletary, Dalton Schultz. They signed Laramie Tunsil to a 3-year, $75 million deal. I like all of that. And it's giving Bryce Young, assuming they take him at number 2, at least like, some serviceable pieces to be surrounding him so that he's not just surrounded by incompetence. So I really like what Houston's doing, but yeah, full rebuild easily. Let's go, I guess, down to the next draft pick within the AFC South, and that's the Colts. Only 2 picks later, and they're obvious. Obviously for here full rebuild. Do they finally draft a quarterback? That's all. That's the only question I want to know is, do they finally draft a quarterback?
Right. Yeah, I've got them in that full on rebuild too. If they don't, then they're solidly in that 2 category that they need to rebuild. But yeah, they're going to be trying to get a quarterback this year. I don't have one really on their roster at all right now that is serviceable to start an NFL game, but got Jonathan Taylor in the backfield, got nice pieces there. You've got Michael Pittman in the wide receiver core. So they've got nice pieces to work around, but definitely
Isaiah McKenzie.
Rebuild. Yep. It's
added
got him
to
from Buffalo.
What is he going to end up being? Who is their number 2 receiver right now?
Probably him, because Paris Campbell's gone.
Yeah.
Although you've got what's his nuts from Cincinnati they drafted last year. Wasn't Cincinnati?
Oh, Alec Pierce. Good call.
Pierce,
yeah, out of Cincy.
Yep.
And he looked like he had some flashes last year, so good call.
We'll save one of my favorite teams in this division for last. I know you like them as well. I'm going to move to Tennessee here, and they are a solid 2. They need to embrace the rebuild. Ryan Tannehill is not going to do anything. This team is peaked. Derrick Henry is coming off of an injury-plagued season. Who knows if he has anything left in the tank or what he has left in the tank here. They need to just go into rebuild mode immediately and try and restart this franchise.
Yeah, I think Tannehill is a perfect trade candidate for anybody that's going to miss out. I mean, there's going to be 1 or 2 teams that are going to miss out on either the free agent quarterbacks, which there's really no free agent QBs left, or somebody in the draft. And Tannehill can come in and try to steer the ship in the right direction, kind of like what he did in Tennessee. If you remember back when Tennessee signed him, that was after the Mariota experiment was a disaster. So Tannehill is not the worst, but he can get your team going in the right direction. And then I think also, so trade Tannehill, trade Derrick Henry, move off those guys. You've got a couple running backs in that backfield, and you also just took Malik Willis in the 3rd round. I think this is kind of similar to, or this is one of those situations where you need to see if Malik Willis can hang. And if he can't, okay, we're going to get a top 5 pick next year and have our chance at, one of these top 2 guys in Drake May and Caleb Williams next year. So I think it's time to just say either, Malik Willis is taking over our franchise, or we can move off of him after this season. Let's move on to the Jags, and you are correct. They are one of my top dogs here. I'm gonna put them in the same category that I put the Lions in, which is go hard to win now and sacrifice the future. I think Trevor Lawrence is the truth. I mean, this guy is legit. He was the number one quarterback going into high school. He was the number one quarterback coming out of high school. He was the number one quarterback going into the NFL. Obviously, he had his issues with Urban Meyer, but Doug Peterson righted that ship. He's still on his rookie deal. And don't forget, again, Calvin Ridley, he's coming into that offense. He's going to have a legit number one, and that's going to move Christian Kirk into the number two. They've got they put the franchise tag on Evan Ingram. This team can win now. We saw them hang with they had that massive comeback against the Chargers in the playoffs last year. They hung in there for a while with Kansas City. So I say go after it now. They've got a lot of talent. They're not paying anybody right now, and I'm into them going after it, because after this season, they're gonna have to pay Josh Allen, their rush end. At some point, you got to pay Trevor Lawrence. And Evan Ingram's you're not going to tag a tight end the second time. So I say now's the time.
Yeah, I put them in like the one major piece in that category for with Calvin Ridley coming in this year. I think that team has all the playmakers on offense to make a deep run into the playoffs. You saw a nice improvement from Trevor Lawrence last year. So I think you just shore up that offensive line, give him some more protection, and you should be good. I don't want to sacrifice the future, because Trevor Lawrence is your future essentially in this, and you're going to have a team and a solid quarterback for a long time to come. So I like just the one major piece away for them. Moving over to the NFC South, and insert Lamar Jackson here if you're any team other than New Orleans. I'm going to start with Atlanta here, and I was kind of teetering between the 1 and 2, but I think they just need to fully embrace this. I mean, you have Desmond Ridder as your starting quarterback right now, which I think I kind of feel like they're kind of teetering that 1 to 2 line, because I think they know that they're in rebuild mode right now, and they're starting him to see what they have and can move and try and get a quarterback next year in the draft, or maybe move up this year. But I just think that they need to tear that team down, and they have done that in the past. Traded away Calvin Ridley, got rid of Matt Ryan, Julio Jones is gone. So they've been doing it, but I think they still need to embrace it a little bit.
Yeah, I'm between continue the rebuild or the complete opposite, and one trade away from potentially winning this division.
Yeah, that's when you stepped away. I said, other than New Orleans Saints, insert Lamar Jackson here for any of these three teams, pretty much. So.
And if they were to make that move for Lamar, I think they at least give themselves a chance to win that division. If they don't want to go that way, then you just got to continue to build this team up. Are we really a believer in Desmond Ridder?
No.
I mean, he's a third round pick for a reason. So continue that rebuild. There's not going to be a quarterback there at 8, which is the problem. So maybe that's why you go after a Lamar. But if not, you give Ridder the full season. And if he sucks, again, same thing with Tennessee. If they embrace the Malik Willis deal, you could end up in that Caleb Williams, Drake May sweepstakes. Let's move over to the Bucs, where I have them as a team that needs to embrace the rebuild. They've got a ton of veterans. They don't have a quarterback. They signed Baker Mayfield. I didn't really understand that signing at all.
No.
I mean, that coaching staff had been pimping Kyle Trask all offseason, and then they go and sign Kyle Trask. Maybe it'll end up being a complete, full-blown QB competition. And if that's the case, I guess I'm okay with it, because if Baker loses to Kyle Trask in a QB competition, that means Tampa is embracing the rebuild. But I think that that's what they have to do, is just embrace that rebuild. Maybe hang on to a Mike Evans, just so that if you do end up blowing this season, you've got a really legit number one weapon for your incoming rookie quarterback. But I think that's what they need to do.
Yeah, I've got them down and needing to embrace the rebuild, and I disagree with that. I think Mike Evans, Chris Godwin are perfect trade away candidates too, to re-embrace that and get some solid draft capital for years to come. They're great guys, but it just, like I said, if you want to jumpstart that rebuild, get some draft capital going, and those are two guys that teams would be more than happy to take on to plug into their lineups. New Orleans, I have in this category too. They just signed Derek Carr, but why? It's one of those that they've just been putting a Band-Aid on this organization since Drew Brees left, and just embrace it. Just kick it.
They just keep kicking the can down the road. That's all they're doing. I wrote down the same thing. I said they need to embrace that rebuild. I don't understand the Derek Carr move. They should have gone into full-on rebuilding. And
perfect opportunity to do it.
I think that they're afraid of what they were pre Sean Payton and pre Drew Brees, which was complete irrelevancy for a long time. So I think that's why they went after Derek Carr. But what does Derek Carr get you? Borderline wild card, or maybe gets you a division win given this division, but you're not getting past the first round. They might end up being the worst playoff team. So I'm in 100% agreement there. And Panthers. Why don't you take the first stab at this one? Because I went back and forth a little bit on them.
I've got them in rebuilding. You just traded away a cornerstone piece in DJ Moore of your wide receiver group. You have the number one overall pick in the draft that you're going to be drafting the quarterback of your future with. And I've got them rebuilding for sure. They've torn it down, that team. Christian McCaffrey's gone. I mean, it's bare bones right now.
It's pretty bare bones. I just want to I'm stuck in between rebuild and one move away. And that includes, that's now CJ Stroud. Okay, you take him at number one, and then see if you can finagle a way to get some other top end player. And I'm saying one move away from winning this division, not from doing anything on that. But but that would be a massive step up to be able to win this division. And that's assuming they take any quarterback at number one. Outside of now, if they take Richardson or Levis, obviously not one move away, but Stroud and Bryce Young, those are guys that are ready to step in right away. If you grab one of those two guys and you can make another move, then I think that they can compete for a division title. I'm not saying that I'm on the right side here, but I think it's possible because this division is so weak. And if Stroud or Young are awesome, who's getting in the way?
Yeah.
So that's, I'm not saying they're going to make any noise in the playoffs, but that could be it. What do we have left?
West. Got the whole West. So I'll run through mine. I'll start off here. The Los Angeles Chargers, I've got down. They need to embrace a rebuild. You have Justin Herbert there as your quarterback of the future, which I'm fine with, but you just have aging veterans all around. Keenan Allen's a shell of his former self. He is someone that you probably should have traded away this offseason. Austin Eckler's wanting out. It's just Brandon Staley. I mean, you need to get rid of him too. So I think you need to do a small teardown in order to rebuild that up and work towards the future with that. And it's cutting some of these aging veterans that you just need to get some youth rejuvenated into this roster.
Yeah, I guess I'm in total pretty much the opposite of you. I think that they need to go hard to win now and sacrifice that future. Uh, I just think that they need to go hard to before they end up paying Herbert. They haven't paid him yet, and that's why they're able to afford Mike Williams in that restructuring, Joey Bosa, not who's that other Keenan Allen, restructuring all those deals, and Mike Williams. They did restructure him too. So I think at this point that's where they're at, and they have to just, I guess, embrace that they need to go hard now and try to get. Now I don't know what the Eckler, how that's going to work out. I think they should try to figure him into the mix. I'd probably rather go forward with Austin Eckler than like a Keenan Allen who's always hurt. But I say go hard now and give up some picks. Let's stay in. Well, I was gonna say stay in LA, but the Raiders haven't been there since the 80s. Let's go to Vegas. I think that they need to embrace that it's time to rebuild. They made that Jimmy G acquisition, but they clearly need to draft a quarterback. Jimmy G's never going to be healthy for a full season. They already moved off of Waller, but then they went and signed Jacoby Brissett. I don't really get what they're doing. That feels like hey, minus Waller, add Myers, pretty much a wash, maybe a little bit of a downgrade. I just don't really understand what they're doing, just like how the Raiders pretty much always are. But I think they need to embrace that it's time to rebuild.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they shouldn't have even signed Jimmy Garoppolo and should have just tried to get somebody in the draft by moving up and just go from there. They need. I think
they still restart. Can do that.
Yeah, they still can.
They still should.
Yeah. I'm gonna move over. Easy one here. Kansas City. I'll keep this short and sweet. They are one major trade away, and that is calling up Arizona for DeAndre Hopkins. I think you bring him in and you're repeat Super Bowl champs.
I wrote down one trade away, maybe, or are they perfect? they're set up for so much success. You've got your quarterback, you've got your coach, your defense is relatively young, your offensive line is, even losing Orlando Brown, it seems like they've got a solution already. They're moving their right tackle to left, and they're gonna probably draft a right tackle.
Well, they found
Isaiah Pacheco in the 7th. Go ahead.
They got Jags tackle Twan.
Oh yeah, you're right. I don't have the Twan.
Yeah,
I don't have the name off the top of my head, but yeah, I mean, one major trade away, and DeAndre Hopkins would fit in perfectly there. And to round out this division, let's go to Denver. I've got them in the go hard to win now, sacrifice the future category. They pretty much have no choice given their lack of draft picks, given that they've got Russell Wilson, who's not going anywhere anytime soon, and given that Sean Payton is already going for it now. I mean, they've already ponied up a ton of money on that offensive line this offseason, so they have no choice but to just go hard now.
Yeah, I've got them in that 3 category as well, to go hard now. You've made your bed with Russell Wilson in it, and you have your window that you have to try and do something here with. So you giving up too much draft capital to not do that and just sit back. So they're definitely in win now mode. I'm going to lump 2 teams into the NFC West here, and that's Arizona and the Rams, and they both need to just embrace that you need to do a full-on rebuild here. The Rams have been kicking the can down the road for so long right now that you need to figure out what you're doing. Let McVay walk and let Stafford go. You've got Cooper Kupp there to build around and just go from there with it. Don't trade away your draft picks anymore. Just figure out how you're going to draft good players to get some youth going and rejuvenate it. And Arizona, you've made your bed with Kyler, but you have nothing around. DeAndre Hopkins, you're tearing down. He's going to be gone at some point in time here. Probably maybe a draft day trade like we saw AJ Brown last year, but they need to just rebuild. They just don't have the right pieces around Kyler right now. And I don't know if you'll ever have the right pieces around Kyler, but you don't right now on your roster.
And you're not going to be able to get it anytime soon. I'll start out with, okay, so I'll continue on that Cardinals conversation. Yeah, I've got them currently in a full rebuild, just given that they're already shopping DeAndre Hopkins. And their new head coach, Jonathan Gannon, I mean, you'd think he's going to have a long runway. Cliff Kingsbury got 4 or 5 years there in Arizona. So you'd think that the ownership would be down with keeping Jonathan Gannon on for a number of, another 4 to 5 years. And at that point, that's long enough to rebuild that squad. It should be. And if it's not, you got the wrong guy. I'll go over to the Rams as well that you mentioned. I think it's, embrace the rebuild. Trade Stafford, trade Cam Akers. I'm saying trade Cooper Kupp. I'm saying trade Aaron Donald, because what value are any of those players if you trade Stafford and don't have a quarterback? Those other 3 players, what are they worth? Not much. So you should be able to get hauls for some of these win now teams. And I would think a pretty sweet haul for Cooper Kupp, even though he's coming off that injury. Let's jump down to the Seahawks. I'm going to say continue that rebuild. We were thinking they were going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL last off season after the Russell Wilson trade. Geno Smith did way more than anybody would have expected, but I still think they need to take a QB at 5 if there's one available. Whether that's a Will Levis, Anthony Richardson type, I think that there should be one available there. And if not, grab Will Anderson is there. So you've got, they can go a couple of different directions. I really love how Geno Smith's contract is structured, where he's going to get $52 million of his contract this season so that they can move off of him next off season or the following very easily. It's a win-win for both sides. I really liked how that was that contract was constructed, but I still think continue the rebuild and get a QB for the future, given that you've got that really high Denver pick at 5.
I honestly don't have anything else to add to that. You hit all the talking points that I wanted to on that. I have them in rebuild mode, nice pieces on the team. That Geno contract's nice. Grab the quarterback at 5 to sit behind him for a year and hope that's your quarterback for the future. And you're still a solid team this year. So you don't really have too much of a transition. I think they're in a fantastic spot right now for sure in that rebuild spot. Last team up, San Francisco. One major trade or piece away. And I think for them, that's just figuring out what they're doing at the quarterback position, whether that's going with Brock Purdy, if he's able to come back from his injury, or Trey Lance coming back from his injury. I mean, they have so many good pieces on defense and offense on that team. Got a fantastic head coach in Kyle Shanahan. So they're set up for some awesome success this year.
Tom Brady. That's all I got to add in there. One move away, Tom Brady.
All right, Joe, for time's sake, did run a little long on this episode. Why don't you just run through quick each category here and just list the team that you would most want to be in that category, least want to be in that category.
Yeah, so my rebuilding squad that I've got here, the team that I'd want to be most amongst these rebuilding teams is Seattle. Their core is just awesome. I think the only thing they need is a QB for the future. The team that I would least want to be is the Falcons. I have no idea what they're doing.
Mine is also Seattle. Like you said, they seem like they're in a really great spot right here. And my least is Cleveland. So for obvious reasons. My number 2 category that they need to embrace the rebuild and start over. I had the Chargers in that category. And like I said, I think Justin Herbert's a great piece there, and they're if they tear it down a little bit and get in the right pieces around there, get in a head coach, I think they're going to be set up for success in the future. And least likely, or least the team that I least like from this category that needs to embrace is Tennessee. There's nothing there for me right now, and they just need to completely blow it up.
Team that I've got for the team that I'd most want to be that needs to rebuild is the Rams. If they do fully embrace that rebuild, if you can move off of Stafford, Cup, all those guys that we mentioned, Donald and Cam Akers. I don't know what Cam Akers is worth, probably a fifth at this point, but they can get some nice pieces, I think, there. So if they want to rebuild and they do truly embrace it, I think they've got a lot of capital they can get. In terms of who I'd least want to be, it's New Orleans. They're gonna be in the middle of the pack again after this season. I just don't understand the Derek Carr signing. So and they don't have enough capital for going forward. My team that I think is what's next? The go hard now.
Go hard to win now.
Go hard now and sacrifice the future. The team that I least want to be is the Jets. I'm not a big Rodgers guy right now. I mean, coming off of a pretty subpar season, I'm not really buying what he's going to be able to bring that to that team. And if they're giving up 2 years of, 2 years of Rodgers just to be mediocre, again, that I feel like they're going to be in a mediocre spot 3 years from now, and they won't have accomplished anything. As far as who I'd most want to be, feels weird to say Detroit, but they've got so many nice young pieces that I think even if they do sacrifice some picks, Goff is right now a top 5 quarterback in the NFC. They've got studs now finally defensively. They could still continue to use some offensive pieces, or at least, a true number 1 wide receiver. But I really like what they've gotten. As long as they're able to keep Ben Johnson on as an offensive coordinator, I think they're my most liked team right now amongst that category.
I didn't have too many teams in this category right now, so I went with the Jets as a team I'd want to be, just with the hopes of Aaron Rodgers reuniting with Nathaniel Hackett. He's coming off of 2 MVP seasons out of his last 3. Yes, it was a down year this last year, but he's got some very nice offensive pieces in that Jets offense to kind of rejuvenate him a little bit. And then the team that I would least like to be is Minnesota. Yes, you have Justin Jefferson, but behind that, I don't know what that's going to look like in a couple of years. So it scares me, but we'll see. The last category, one major trade away. Team I would most like to be is Kansas City. I mean, what else can you say? Doubters were out there this year with Patrick Mahomes, and what does he do? He turns around, wins a Super Bowl. So they're the team that I would most want to be. Andy Reid there, best quarterback in the league, and Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and nothing else needs to be said there. Team I would least like to be in this category for me is Philadelphia. It scares me with those 2 coordinators going away, and they've lost some pieces on defense this year. We'll see that NFC East, if Washington ends up getting a quarterback here in the next year or 2, what do they look like with some of the other pieces that they have on their team? And if Dallas gets the right pieces in too, they're going to be competing with you as well. They were in the playoffs this last year, so Philly's there for me for the least.
And in this category, for one move away, I've got Kansas City as who I'd most want to be. That almost feels like cheating.
Right.
Otherwise, I'd go Cincinnati, which that feels like a pretty easy number 2. And then team I'd least want to be, I'm going to go Miami, and that's solely because of the Tua situation. Yeah. And I mentioned that is the one piece that I feel that they're away from making a potential Super Bowl run. So I'll put Tua down, or Miami down as my one move away from winning it all.
I like it. We could be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on Facebook at Dead Arm Sports. Go to YouTube, Dead Arm Sports, into that search bar. Subscribe, click the bell there. That way you know when our live episodes drop. It was Wednesday this week, so if you subscribe, you'll know when we are going live. You can ask us any questions via the chat box on the right-hand side of the screen. If you miss out on asking us questions there, we can be found at Dead Arm Sports, at DosGel, at DosJpex. Follow us and ask us any questions there. Subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite listening platform. Send us a screenshot and we will swag you up. What are those platforms, Joe?
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Pods. Make sure to find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Dead Arm Sports, and also on YouTube. Just search Dead Arm Sports to find us there. Subscribe there. Hit that bell to get all of our alerts whenever we put out anything new, whenever we go live. We're always open to comments. So let's go.
Again, that'll wrap up this episode. We can, don't know why my screen's going weird right now, but go to YouTube.
Hey,
you'll get to see some trippy stuff. But thanks everyone out there for listening. If you could tell someone you know about the podcast, that would help us out immensely. Happy Friday. Go have yourself a cocktail, and Joe, close her out.
It's Friday. Gotta get down on Friday. Everybody's getting... Oh, shit, I messed it up. That's it. Bye.